Come here. Oh, you're my big boy. You're my big boy. Should we start with you? Would you like to be the star of the video today? Huh? Oh, look at that face. Look at that face. Just look at that face. All right, you ready to start? Do you want to gargle, brush your teeth, anything? No, you're good. Okay. All right. Hey, it's me. It's Mark Meckler. Welcome to the BattleCry. This is my new buddy, Odin. Odin is actually one of my grand doggies. I know you grandparents probably know this. You have kids, you have dogs. We call them our grand doggies. And Odin belongs to my son, Jacob. Odin is probably, I don't know, he's a big boy. He's the biggest of our Danes right now. He's about 160, 170 pounds, 5-year-old dude. He was a rescue Dane when he was about 18 months old. He's a big lover, as you can see. And I love having him around. So we have 3 of them in the house now because you thought I was crazy for having 2 Great Danes. Well, now we got Odin. Hopefully you can see there's Doc back on the couch, blending in, a perfect match. And I don't know where Winston is. He's out somewhere. He'll be around, no doubt. But and Odin, he'll stay like this the entire show if I let him. So we'll have to tell him to go lay down, right? So we can actually do the show. All right, Odin, go lay down. Go on, buddy. Go lay down. Okay, 3 big dogs, lots of big news. Let's get to it. I'm excited about today's show. There's a lot to cover. There's always a lot to cover. And this is Thanksgiving week. So Thanksgiving week, it means there's a lot to cover always. Coming up in today's show, we got a bunch of really interesting stuff. I want to talk about China because China's a big problem. I want to talk about Islam because Islam's a big problem. I want to talk about the midterms because potentially the midterms are a big problem. So join us on the BattleCry for all that and a lot more. All right, getting started here. We're going to start with our BattleCry call to action. And the BattleCry call to action, since it is Thanksgiving week, is this. If it's going to be messy, don't talk politics over Thanksgiving. Like, I don't want you to ruin your family Thanksgiving over politics. I've heard it happen. I've seen it happen. Even at my own house, or at least my parents' house, when my parents used to host Thanksgiving, it can be really messy, and you don't have to do it. You can have a rule in your family. This is okay. And this, you might think this is running contrary to some other stuff I've said to you. I'll clarify. But you do not have to talk politics with family. And so if you want to set that rule for Thanksgiving, you can do that. Why? Because Thanksgiving is a time for giving thanks. For giving thanks to the Lord for everything He's given you. For every atom in the universe. Literally. For the universe itself. For this beautiful earth. For the miracle of oxygen and water and plants and the beasts and everything He created situated right here just far enough from the sun, not too far, not too close, the right amount of oxygen around the planet, all of that stuff. Thank you. We give thanks to the Lord. And then you bring it down to your own family and give thanks for your family. For you, maybe for your wife, maybe your parents, your kids, cousins, friends, whatever you have sitting around that table, should be very thankful for that. And you don't want to ruin that with politics. I don't want to ruin it with politics. And so if the rule has to be in your family, if you know there are different political perspectives, different political perspectives, and it's going to get complicated and really messy, and people are going to get mad, don't do it. That's my advice. Just don't do it. You don't have to do it, right? Don't take the bait. And if somebody tries to bait you and you don't want to do it and you don't want that at your house for Thanksgiving because you don't want to take a chance of ruining your Thanksgiving, it's okay to say, hey, you know what? We're all just going to agree. We're not going to do politics during Thanksgiving because I don't want to have an argument with you. I don't want to not express my opinion for fear of offending you, but I also don't want to offend you. So why don't we just skip the politics? Now, that being said, if somebody says, nope, I really want to do politics, I want to have these discussions, and you're willing to do it, I'm okay with that. You know what I always say, be prepared with the facts and use reason and stay calm. Don't have opinions on things you don't know about. If you don't know about something, it's okay to say, you know what, I don't really know about that. And the way that I have these discussions, I want to encourage you, do not argue, discuss. Do not debate, discuss. Those are different things. When you argue and when you debate with somebody, the goal is to defeat them, right? And in defeat, what you do is you crush your enemy. You make them look foolish. You make them feel foolish. You make them act foolish. All of those things are part of debate and argument usually, but they're not part of discussion. And I can tell you in all the debates and all the arguments I've ever had, and as a lawyer, and I've been in debates, professional debates, I do it in the media, I can honestly tell you that I've never walked away from a debate where my opponent came up to me and said afterwards, man, you seem like a really nice guy and you really convinced me. Why not? Well, because my goal is to crush them. It's to make them feel foolish, look foolish, sound foolish. People don't like somebody who does that. It's not a friendly environment when you have a debate. So I want you to think about any of these political discussions that you're having around your Thanksgiving table, if you have them with people you disagree with, as discussions. The most important thing you can do in a discussion is right there. Listen. Come to a discussion with the idea that I might be wrong. I might learn something from this person. Even a person who I have fundamental disagreements with, who I disagree with their worldview, I disagree with their faith view, I disagree with their political view, I still might learn something from them. And if I learn something, then I benefited from the discussion. I go away smarter. I go away more accomplished. I go away with new facts in my fact quiver. And that's a good thing. And so always come in with the idea that you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen twice as much as you talk. And when I say listen, I don't mean just let the words flow in. I mean actually listen. And if you're actually listening, then the next step is to ask questions. Explain to me. I don't really understand why you think that. Are there studies that I could look at, that we could look at on the phone, on the computer, that back up what you're saying so I understand? I want to understand why you have that opinion. It doesn't sound right to me. I'll tell you why it doesn't sound right to me. Let me explain. Here's my facts. Here's the studies I could cite. Here's the articles I'm reading. Let's talk our way through this and see if we can educate each other. Maybe we can even come to common ground. That's how I would deal with something where I'm having a discussion. And I would say, hey, I understand why you feel that way. I try to say, hey, that part makes sense to me. What you're saying there, your reason for wanting to do this thing makes sense to me. I might not agree with your solution, but I get the problem you're trying to address, and I think that's a good idea. Anytime I can agree with somebody when I'm in a discussion like this, especially with friends or family, but pretty much with anybody, I am always looking for points of agreement. And yes, even with leftists, even with crazy Democrats, even with radical progressives, I'm still looking for some point of agreement. Can't always find it, but I'm looking for that. So I want to encourage you to do that. If you're going to have these discussions at your family table, keep them to discussions. Be kind, listen a lot, ask questions. Don't hammer somebody else. Your goal is not to win. Your goal is to have a discussion. And you might learn something if you keep your mind open. So that's the way I would handle Thanksgiving. Around my house, it's usually not that hard because it's a bunch of hardcore conservatives around the table. It's harder to find disagreements. We disagree on, are you far right enough? Am I further right than you? My kids tend to be even further right than me. So we'll have interesting discussions. They won't be right left, and they will be not arguments, but discussions. All right, let's get into the news of the week. Let's start with Secretary McMahon at the Department of Education. I saw a lot of criticism when Linda McMahon became Secretary of Education. Well, what does she know about education? She knows a lot. Oh, what does she know about running anything? She runs a multi-billion-dollar business empire. She knows a lot. Smart lady, honest lady, ethical lady. I've spent time with her. My wife spent time with her. We really like her on a personal level. I know how smart and how driven she is. She cares about American children, and she wants to get the federal government out of the business of education. She would like to shut down the Department of Education, and I think she's doing a really good job. And I don't know if you're watching, because she's not doing headline busting stuff. She's just doing the hard work of making that agency go away. A lot of the major functions of that agency, the stuff that they can't get rid of because it's mandated by law and it would take Congress to get rid of this stuff, that stuff's been outed to other agencies. So there are things that that agency does, like managing education on Indian reservations. And that's been pushed off to the Department of Interior, for example. There's a whole bunch of things like that that they've just pushed out in order to gut the agency and move it closer to shutdown. So the stuff that's mandated by law that she doesn't have any authority to change, She's dispersing to other agencies. Why is that important? Because then you don't have this giant centralized bureaucracy whose self-existence is its primary reason for existence, it's self-preservation. That goes away. And that's a really good thing. And right now she's calling on Congress to actually write these changes into law. Because if they write these changes into law, it makes it much harder for another administration to reconstitute the Department of Education. So kudos to Secretary McMahon. Great job. Full body slam on the Department of Education. All right, up next, China. Let's talk about China. I wish we could do a full body slam on China. I actually think China is the single greatest threat to the United States of America. And by the way, it's not because they're so big. It's not because I think they could defeat us militarily right now, because I don't think they could. I study this a lot. I don't think they have the capability to do it. It's not because I'm worried about their long-term technological prowess, because I'm not. It's not because I worry about their giant population. I think their population numbers are faked, and I think they're declining, and I think they're in big demographic trouble. The reason I'm worried about China is because they're here, because they're inside of our colleges, because they're inside of our businesses, because they're inside of our government. And I don't want to do the whole Chinese scare thing. That's not my thing. They're incredible, wonderful, amazing Americans of Chinese descent, right? And we have to be very cautious in America because we are indeed a melting pot. And for those who come here and want to be part of this incredible American experiment, they're just as American as anybody else. But I do fear, and I don't think this is just a fear, I think it's proven out by the facts, that there are a lot of Chinese people who come here. They operate under the thumb of the CCP, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. They got family back there that are being threatened. And they're inside our high-tech companies, and they're inside of our government, and they're inside... Sometimes they're in the beds of our elected officials like Fang Fang and Swalwell, who's now running for governor of California. Oh, God save California. Whole nother subject. But we have to be very careful about this. There are hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland owned by China. And by the way, interestingly, I'm sure it's just a coincidence, farmland right next to American military base. Just a coincidence, I'm sure. Usually held through a variety of shell companies, but if you trace them back, you're going to find contacts to the CCP. This is dangerous. There should be no foreign national ownership of farmland in America, period, in my opinion. I actually don't think there should be foreign national owned land in America, period. America first. That land should be for Americans. It is American land. And I specifically think that any farmland that's been picked up by the Chinese should be seized. That's right. It should be seized. If we have to compensate for it, I'd have to think about that. Maybe I'm okay with that, but that farmland needs to be seized. You know what? We can't own land in China. You can't. Our government can't. Our big corporations can't. They don't allow that. And so why do we allow them to own land here? We need to pass a law that absolutely prevents that. We need to pass a law that prevents them from infiltrating our companies and our universities. We have to treat China as the foe that it treats us. China considers us their greatest global foe. They spend billions upon billions of dollars a year stealing our technology, stealing our intellectual property, buying our farmland, buying our real estate, not because they like us and when they want to invest in us, but because they intend to crush us. They say this openly. This is one of the things that drives me crazy. They say this openly. If you read translated Chinese publications, you would understand that they are in what they call total warfare against the United States. By the way, total warfare includes your smart refrigerator. It includes the chips inside your smartphone. It includes perhaps your Ring door alarm and your alarm on your house. It includes the chips in your computer. They require that anything manufactured in China has a back door built into it that allows them electronic access. So it's a problem. It's a serious problem. And we as a nation have to get serious about it. And one of the things that makes it so hard for us to get serious about it is that they have essentially right now what I would describe as an infinite supply of money. So they can buy people because most people have a price. And a lot of people think, well, you know, if I just take $5 million from the Chinese, it sets me up for life. And then it's, what is this little piece of information I'm giving them? It's no big deal. By the way, once you do that, once anybody does that, now you're owned by them. You're owned by the Chinese government because they can turn you in, right, and ruin your life. And And so people do this and they get owned by the Chinese government. And we've got a lot of them. And they're inside our government. They're inside our companies. They're inside our educational institutions. All of that has to stop. And we're going to have to cut all that off, or we're going to be in very, very big trouble. This is true about Islam as well. Islam is an ideology. I would argue it is a governmental and sociological system that uses faith as a fuel to fire its engine. I don't believe Islam, I don't see Islam fundamentally as a religion. I think it has religion as a piece which adds the ideological fervor, the passion, the excitement to a system designed specifically for world domination. Islam actually means submission. Islam intends for you to submit or die. Submit or die. That's a fundamental tenet of Islam. It is, in my opinion, fundamentally incompatible with the United States of America. Our Constitution says point blank that it is the supreme law of the land. Practicing Muslims would tell you, according to the Quran, that Sharia is the supreme law of the land. That Islam is intended to rule over everything and that all laws must be consistent with Sharia. It's often referred to as the religion of peace. And indeed it is when everybody else surrenders. That's one of the tenets of Islam. We will have peace when all other nations are under the subjugation of Islam. When all nations are part of a worldwide caliphate, then we will have peace in the world. Now, by the way, I don't even believe that. That's not true, because Muslims, various sects of Muslims war against each other as much as, or more actually, than anybody else. But that's the pitch, right? When everybody's Muslim, then we will all be subjugated under the same system. It is fundamentally incompatible with the United States of America. And we are seeing large swaths of cities, and sometimes whole cities like Dearborn, Michigan, being taken over by Muslim governments. We are seeing in Dearborn, for example, large parades or large public demonstrations where people are literally chanting "Death to America." And how do we tolerate that in our country? All right, so we have China making war on the U.S., we have Islam making war on the U.S., and we have a war on conservatism. And the war on conservatism is being conducted, in my opinion, not by the left in America, not by nefarious outside forces, though it's sometimes elevated by them and paid for by them, but it is coming from inside alleged conservatism itself. It's led by the likes of Tucker Carlson, in my opinion. It's led by Candace Owens. It's led by the Hodge twins. It's led by Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes, I feel like, should be like the name that cannot be spoken, but I'll speak it anyway. It's led by that little Nazi scumbag, Nick Fuentes, and those who would give him a place to speak to the broader general public, like Tucker, like Candace. And Candace, I just want to say, I'm going to start at the top of the list. I think she's the #1 podcast now. She's nuts. And if you have to tune me out because I say this, I would say she's evil. If you have to tune me out because I say this and you like Candace, feel free to tune me out. I'm okay with that. Because I'm not down with that, because she is damaging the United States of America. She's doing horrendous things. She is alleging that the leadership of Turning Point USA, many of whom I know personally, she's alleging that those people were behind the murder of Charlie Kirk. She's alleging that Jews, the great American Jewish conspiracy, American Jewry, this cabal of Jews that run the world, were behind Charlie Kirk's murder. I mean, it's just vile, disgusting stuff. And I'm always going to speak out against it. And I don't like to speak out against fellow conservatives. There's a saying on the right, which I completely disagree with, which is there are no enemies to the right. No, that's not correct. There are enemies on the right. Candace claims to be on the right. She's not on the right. This is an up and down fight, not a left to right fight. And an up and down, she's on the bottom side. She's on the downside. She's on the evil side. I'm going to speak against that down, that evil. She makes literally millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars by spouting the worst kinds of conspiracy theories, blood libels, just disgusting, vile, despicable stuff. And I'll say this as somebody who has known Candace for a very long time. I met her first when she was just up and coming at TPUSA. I befriended her. I helped her. Long story, not going to go into it here. And like everybody else, she does this. She turned on me for no apparent reason, to be honest with you. And I'm sure she would deny this, whatever. I don't want to get into all the details. I will if anybody really cares. I would be happy to have the conversation with you and tell you what happened. But the bottom line is she's been like this always. She makes her money and builds her fame on the backs of others. That is who Candace Owens is. And if you're getting sucked down her conspiracy rabbit hole, don't do it. She will rot your brain. And more importantly, and truthfully, she will rot your soul. So don't listen to that madness. Don't get involved in that madness. Don't follow that madness. In fact, I just want to say in regard to Tucker and Candace and Fuentes and the Hodge twins and anybody else you can think of that's into all of this stuff, ignore it. Deprive it of oxygen. Don't try to fight it. Don't give them the oxygen that they want. And you might say, well, Mark, but that's exactly what you're doing. You're giving it oxygen. I'm doing it so you don't have to. We don't all have to be engaged in this. This is what I do for a living. This is what I have to do every day. I'm just telling you, don't click on it. Don't watch it. Don't listen to it. Don't talk about it. That's giving them the oxygen that they need and desire. We're going to have to drive this stuff out of the conservative movement, or we are going to kill the conservative movement. You know why? Because the average American isn't down with Nazis like Nick Fuentes. The average American isn't down with all the insane conspiracy theories about how Charlie Kirk's closest friends and confidants all conspired to kill him. The average American doesn't like that stuff. You know what the average American likes? Normal. Just normie, regular stuff. And if you go down this conspiracy theory hole, we're going to lose the average American. And that means we, as conservatives, are going to lose conservatism. And I intend to fight for conservatism, and that means to rescue it from the Nazis that are trying to invade it, from the evil people that are trying to invade it and take over it, from the people that are just trying to profit off of it. I'm one guy. I'm not that big. I'm not that big of a voice. I'm no Tucker. I'm no Candace. I'm no Turning Point. I'm not even close to Nick Fuentes' amount of followers. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to fight. You know, I always quote John Quincy Adams, do your duty. Results belong to God. That's my credo. That's what I'm going to continue to fight this fight. So I would just tell you, ignore it. I'll update you if I think it's helpful for you. Once in a while, I will talk about it. But the best thing we can do is just push those people to the sidelines and ignore them. One of the reasons this is so important is because the midterms are coming up. And if you look at the polling right now, it's not going well for Republicans. If you want to preserve the republic, if you want economic growth, if you don't want the Momdanization of the United States of America, the AOC-ization of the United States of America, the Nazification of the United States of America, then we have to do well in the midterms. We, meaning people like me who are conservatives. And all that other garbage is going to keep us from doing well. The polls don't look really good right now. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. Trump has been, from a public perspective, almost entirely focused on two things. One is foreign affairs, and man, what a job that guy's been doing. I think it's 8 wars ended. If he pulls off what he's trying to pull off in Ukraine, it'll be 9 wars ended. That's an incredible record. That's a Nobel Peace Prize record. I don't care about the Nobel Peace Prize, but he should get one for that. But I think he focuses it outwardly, publicly focuses on that too much. I would like to see him focused more on domestic policy. People are hurting right now. And what Trump keeps saying, and I understand this, and it's true, is that things are way better now than they were under Joe Biden. That's a fact. Inflation is way down. And under Biden, it was at some points double digits. Gas was up over $5 on an average, I think nationally. Now it's around $2.70 or something nationally. Turkey prices, speaking of Thanksgiving, are coming down. Like, things are way better, but they're still worse. They're still worse. For the average person, they are worse than they were 4 or 5 years ago. And that's a problem. And so Trump needs to focus on acknowledging that, not just talking about how much better things are. I think we should talk about that. But the average person pulls their pocket out and goes, yeah, I got less money. Yeah, I'm struggling. yeah, rent is sky high. Affordability, as Mom Donnie talked about, is a real thing. And so I think Trump needs to focus on addressing that stuff. Excuse me, I think he will. I'm hopeful, but he better get on it because the 2026 midterms are going to be here before you know it. What Trump's also been focused on is immigration enforcement here at home. And hallelujah, thank God. I love seeing ICE out in the streets. I love seeing the worst of the worst being rounded up. But I think they need to do a better job of talking about who's getting rounded up, because the left is saying, you know, it's grandma, it's abuela who's out putting up Christmas tree lights or whatever, and she's getting dragged away from her family kicking and screaming, and she didn't really do anything wrong. One, in my opinion, personally, every illegal immigrant is a criminal and deserves to be deported, but the American people are down with, for sure, on a broad scale, deporting the bad guys. And Trump administration, to its credit, is mostly doing that. I just don't think the narrative's good enough. And then finally, number three, I would say Trump administration really, really, really has to address young people. Young people feel abandoned by the Trump administration. And I understand. You know, average age of a first-time home buyer of a house now is 40 years old. 10 years ago, that was 29. So it's up 11 years in the last 10 years. I don't know if you have kids. If you're my age, I have kids that are home buying age. It's just horrible what the market's doing to them. And that's a serious problem for the country. President Trump is going to have to address that. The price of groceries, the price of cars, the price of a house, the price of everything. They also feel like they're being sold out internationally. All this money being spent on foreign aid, on foreign wars. Now, I'm no isolationist. I want to make clear. And generally speaking, I really approve of the way Trump is handling foreign affairs. And I am a fan of taking care of Israel, taking care of our friends around the world. And that does cost us money. And I don't like that. I just think that we should do better here at home with the money we have. I just think that's a reality of living in a world. I don't think you can just isolate yourselves. But there's an isolationist wing in the Republican Party, and especially among much younger people. We're going to have to figure that out. Trump's going to have to learn how to address that. We're going to have to explain to them exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it if we're going to keep doing it. And I think there's a lot of places where we probably shouldn't be doing it. So we're going to have those discussions. We're going to have to address the concerns of younger people. And by younger people, I don't mean kids, by the way. I'm talking like 40 on down as younger people. I'm an older people. I'm 63. But we need to address the concerns of younger people with not just rhetoric, but actual things that will make their lives better. I think a big thing to do is housing deregulation. One of the reasons housing costs are so dang high is because, especially in blue states, the building codes are so ridiculous. You just can't build affordable housing anymore. And by affordable housing, I don't mean like Section 8 government-inspired housing. I mean houses that are affordable for regular people, because the building codes are so ridiculous what they've done to them now. These blue states, these blue cities especially, but also big cities in red states, we need to do something about that. And so hopefully President Trump has something to do about that. Maybe what we do is we have something like a national housing code. That's an example of how to have a reasonable, rational building code for builders of housing, and maybe tie it to something like federal funding in the states, right? That if you have this housing code, you continue to get your federal funding, whatever that may be. By the way, I'm not a fan of federal funding, as you know. But maybe we tie it to that. So states don't want to lose the federal funding. They got to have an easier building code. We need a housing boom in America. And I think it's going to be up to the administration to figure out how to talk to young people, how to address their concerns, and maybe how to create a housing boom. All right, we're going to go to Q&A before we close out. Remember, don't let the big tech overlords win. So you need to subscribe. You like the video, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, whatever it takes to have this stuff come into your inbox when it comes. You need to do that. That's how we spread the word. If you want to get more news delivered straight to your inbox, news like what I'm talking about here, go to conventionofstates.com/BattleCry list, all one word, conventionofstates.com/BattleCry list. And if you want to ask me a question, please feel free to ask anything. I answer them all. You can write into conventionofstates/ask Mark. First question is from Dave Vigna. What do you think the Supreme Court will do regarding President Trump's tariff policy? My personal opinion, I don't know any more than anybody else except for I follow the court. I think they're going to split the baby. I think what they're going to do is they're going to say where it's an actual specific national emergency, like maybe dealing with China, the president has wide tariff policy. But if it's something like tariffing Canada, I don't think they're going to see that as a national emergency. I don't think he has emergency tariff powers otherwise. Generally, tariffs are for Congress. They're a tax. And so I think they're going to split the baby between the things that are true emergencies. So maybe they carve out stuff on Russia, stuff on countries dealing with Russia and China, similar stuff with China. I think that's probably about it that they're going to uphold. I think the rest come down. By the way, that'll be good for the economy because the tariffs do dampen the economy a bit and it makes manufacturers really uncertain. So I think that's where they're going to come down on that. Tracy LeBlanc says, what should those of us that live in blue states focus our attention on with regard to supporting Convention of States? Focus locally. Focus on your city councils. Get them to issue proclamations and support, statements of support. Focus on your county governments. By the way, I would suggest you run for office in your city council, on your county board, on your school board. Run for those seats. We have literally hundreds of Convention of State supporters across the country sitting in those places. I just saw somebody signed up, filled out their paperwork here in Texas to run for the Texas House. They're a Convention of State supporter for many years, got involved, learned about politics, became a committeeman, ended up on the executive committee, and now they're running for elected office in the state legislature. So I would say the thing to do is get involved, even in your blue state. Lydia Lascola asks, why did America fall away from having interstate conventions on a more regular basis? Lydia, I think what happened, my read on this is it was a cultural thing. Over time, people felt like sort of, I guess the best way to put it is e pluribus unum, right? Out of many, one. This idea that, oh, maybe we're all the same. And I think a lot of things happened to the United States culturally that caused us to believe this. We have national sports leagues. We have national television shows. We listen to a lot of the same music. We watch a lot of the same news. Oh, we're all the same. So we don't need to do things as states. We don't need states to have power. We don't need states to gather and talk about what they want to do because if we're all the same, it can all come from a centralized federal government, and then it just matters who controls it, right? I think this is the reason we fell away from having interstate conventions more often, and I'm a big fan of bringing them back. All right, Annie P.S., I noticed some low-hanging fruit on Doc in one video. It's a very nice way to put that, Annie. Yeah, Doc and Winston both have low-hanging fruit. I don't believe in fixing my dogs. It's not because I'm going to breed them. It's because I had a dog named Levi. Many of you remember Levi, one of my favorite Great Danes of all time. And as he got old, he started to get atrophied in his back legs, a little bit of arthritis in his spine, a bunch of stuff started happening to him. Normal stuff for an older dog. But I started asking, well, why is this normal on an older dog? And I started doing research trying to figure out if there was anything I could do. And I found this website. It's a funny name. It's called Dogosterone. And it is testosterone supplementation for dogs. And I read the guy's website and he said, look, we do this for older men who have low testosterone counts, makes them feel better, builds bone density, builds muscle mass, all this stuff, makes them think clearer. And I thought, man, I don't want to lose Levi right now. I wonder if I could give him this stuff. And I got my vet to do it and it worked. And he gained like 20 pounds and he got 2 more vibrant years out of his life. And it was fantastic. It was a once a month shot for him. And I talked to the vet about, well, why do we neuter dogs? Like exactly why? My vet at the time was, I think, like 2 years out of law school. And she said, well, we neuter dogs because it prevents, what'd she call them? Sexual cancers, sexual organ cancers, right? Like, well, what's the rate of that among dogs? Like naturally. And it was some infinitesimally small rate. And she said, and by removing it, then they could still in those areas get cancers, but the rate goes way down. I'm like, so we go from very, very tiny to double very tiny. She goes, yeah. I said, what else? And she goes, well, it removes aggressive behavior in male dogs. And I said, what if you don't see any aggressive behavior in male dogs? She said, well, yeah, that makes sense. And she said, like marking too much or, inappropriate mounting, to use the nice term for it. And I said, well, what if my dogs aren't doing that kind of stuff? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, and we're going to deprive dogs of testosterone for their entire lives doesn't that mean they're going to lose muscle mass and lose bone density and lose cartilage flexibility and lose energy and all this stuff? And she goes, yeah. Like, well, then should I really do it? And she said, I'll be honest with you, I never thought about it that way. We just get taught that in vet school that this is what we do. If your dogs are in a situation, they're not going to impregnate unfixed females around them, which we don't have any of that around us, and they're behaving well, maybe we shouldn't do it. And so these are my first males that I've had that are not neutered. And so far, so good. No aggressive behavior, no anything like that. As you said, there is low-hanging fruit. I don't love that part, but be that as it may, this is kind of an experiment for us and our first dogs that are unfixed. I find fixing a pretty funny euphemism, isn't it? We cut off their parts and we call that fixing them. Anyway, that's why, it's the low-hanging fruit. I'm sorry you had to see that on the BattleCry. This is supposed to be a family-friendly show, but I'll blame that on Annie. All right, before we close out, again, remember the BattleCry this week, the call to action. Don't talk politics at Thanksgiving if you're going to start an argument. Have a discussion if you can. Don't start an argument at Thanksgiving. Love on your family. That's what you should do for Thanksgiving. Thank God for all the blessings in your life. One of the big blessings I thank God for all the time, and we'll definitely be doing it at Thanksgiving table, is I thank God for you guys, the grassroots. I love you. We won't be here next week because it is Thanksgiving week. We'll see you the week after on the BattleCry.